Warning, this podcast has stories of real-life events and true crime that happens every day. These stories may contain adult language and graphic or disturbing details not suitable for everyone. Listener discretion is advised.
132 in Bush, I've got him at gunpoint.
They're pulling them out.
911, advise ready for camp.
Welcome to another episode of War Stories. I'm Chuck.
And I'm Fuzzy, or AKA Marco, or the Latin Love Machine. Whichever one you're going to call me. That's perfectly fine. Buenas tardes. Or buenos dias. Bienvenidos a War Stories. If you guys listened in last week, we have... Thanks, man. I appreciate you.
Like
if you guys...
language.
Un poquito, por favor. Más cervezas, por favor. That's all I need to know, right? If y'all remember from last week, we're going to roll right into it. We have Aaron back with us again for part 2. The truth is, he couldn't get enough of us, and that's okay. Nice. We had sexy dreams about him. No, we did not. Oh, I'm sorry. This is not the locker room. Sorry. sorry.
I wore a gym tank for you guys, man.
Don't you think for 1 second that I did not see your grease up job over there too in the center? You know what I'm saying? That's catching me there. That's catching me. I'm just giving credit where credit's due. So once again, thank you guys for joining us here in War Stories. It's so funny for me to say that. And we're gonna pick up right where we left off previously on War Stories. Aaron, you had mentioned basically that you had made the decision to join law enforcement. We had talked about the decision between that and firefighting, and now we're going to get further into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man. Basically, everything from part 1, the struggles I had in the Marine Corps, decided to get out, want to be a firefighter. They're not hiring. Law enforcement is. Got hired on by the sheriff's office here in Chattanooga. Started out in corrections. Loved it.
Real quick, let me interrupt you. Real quick. How long after getting out, after you EAS'd out of the Marine Corps, how long till you got picked up by the local agency? Was
about
it quick
4
or was it
years.
long?
No, about 4 years, because I don't know if I actually said this in the last one, but because I was working toward becoming a firefighter, I worked as an EMT for 4 years.
I do remember you mentioning the EMT. Yes, I do remember that. So you actually, yes, sorry. Thank you for refreshing us. So you were actually on the job. Now, were you working for a private company? Were you working under the city? Was it a city contract? Oh, it's always a city contract. But were you working?
Yeah, I started when I first EAS'd. I moved down to Wilmington.
Okay.
Chuck's probably where Wilmington is on the coast of North Carolina. And I worked
an hour and a half south of Jacksonville.
And I worked on the ambulance a little bit, but mainly in the ER. But then when I moved back to Tennessee, it was strictly in the ER. We have in Chattanooga, we have a level 1 trauma center here. And I worked in the emergency room here. Okay.
How was overall? How long was the schooling? How long was the training and schooling for that too?
To become an EMT is actually it doesn't take very long at all in the state of Tennessee. It takes, if you want just to get your EMT, now I wasn't a paramedic because there's different levels. At least in Tennessee, there's different levels of care.
Okay.
It took me about 8 weeks.
And
then
about as long as it took Matt. Yeah. About 8 weeks.
That tracks. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I took my national boards and started working.
Now you were, if I remember correctly, you were a medic in the Corps, right?
No, the Marine Corps doesn't have medics. They are supported by the Navy. I was a radio operator.
Okay. My bad.
Radios.
My bad. Fail.
Loading crypto and shit. Yeah.
Host fail.
Rolling that crypto, bro.
Okay.
Yeah. He said people hated him because everything would go down all the time.
Yeah, because everybody hates comm, and they love us when it works, and they don't love us when it doesn't.
Yeah, and honestly, like I said, I loved my comm guy. He was my best friend. We hung out every day, every weekend, like just thick as thieves, you know. So when you got out and you were rolling as an EMT, you did that for 4 years. You worked in a level 1 trauma center as an EMT. Were you struggling with anything that had followed you from the military into this next portion, or did it kind of like lay in wait for a while?
it laid in wait. Looking back on it, I was experiencing some post traumatic stress, but I didn't realize what that was exactly. And then when I got into law enforcement, when I got into corrections, that's when it really started to kind of hit, and that's when I started drinking more heavily.
What was the first? Do you remember the first thing that kind of triggered it? And you're like, "Fuck."
I do. I don't know if you guys remember from part 1, but I'm like, yeah, I joined corrections. I got my face broke. It was a good time. I got into a use of force with an inmate, and I'll say his name because fuck him.
I like your style.
Yeah, screw.
It's public record, right? Yeah. His name is Courtney Burt. All right, he's doing about 30 years for murder right now.
I'm sorry. Did you say his name is Courtney?
Correct.
Just checking.
That's why I kill a bunch of people.
Wait, boy named Sue. You know what I'm saying? Boy named Sue.
Right. But we were. Basically, he didn't play well with others. Okay. So he could only come out on rec time at certain times.
Okay.
And it was time for him to go up. So the other guy in the pod, the cell next to him, who also didn't play well with others, could go out on his rec time. And he was on the phone, and this was not hard on the yard language at all. I mean, I didn't talk to him like that, man. I was just, but I was like, hey, brother, I said, you got about 5 minutes, man. Then I got to get this other guy who will remain nameless out, for rec. And he kind of gave me the chin nod, and I was like, all right. Come back, give him, 2 minutes, 1 minute, and then it comes time for him to go up, right? Then I just gently it wasn't hard hand techniques. I just put my hand on the back of his elbow and kind of did this. I'm like, hey, brother, it's time to go up. And this motherfucker swung around with his phone. He was on the phone and just clocks me right in the face, right?
Oh, wow.
It fractured my orbital socket.
Oh, fuck. So, that's a tough one.
Yeah, 100. And so we're fighting, dude. And we could probably have a whole nother episode, but my partner was in the clinic with the dentist, and you couldn't leave the dentist or the doctor there by themselves with inmates. Right?
Oh shit.
Yeah. So we're fighting. And this cat must have been a wrestler. The whole time I kept thinking, I'm like, dude, did you wrestle in high school? Because I was giving him all I had, man. That, mind you, I'm down one eye.
Yeah.
And I'm just knee strikes, everything I can. And he would go down, but he would sprawl. And I was like, dude, did you wrestle in high school?
Oh,
and like Chuck probably knows, like when you're in like a critical incident, I think sometimes civilians don't get it. But the craziest, funniest shit will go, at least for me, like it went through my mind. Like the craziest, funniest shit went through my mind, right? Because I was like, so we're fighting. And I'm like, why do you smell like cocoa butter, dog? I said, why do you smell like in my head? I was like, this motherfucker smells delicious, right? Well, it made me laugh out loud. And it freaked him out, right? Because he's like, why is this motherfucker laughing? And that was just enough for me to be able to throw him on the ground. And then actually a jail nurse overheard the commotion and came and helped me get him cuffed up. And then once we get him up, then that's when the cavalry arrives, of course, after it's all over. And so I'm out for like probably 4 months because of my eye. I have to get surgery and all that. Well, there was somebody at the sheriff's office that was trying to write me up because I broke policy by transporting the inmate by myself, right? Which was true. But I always kind of go back with, and I'm not hating on the other corrections deputies. I'm not hating on anyone, but it's like there's what the policy was at the sheriff's office, and then there's also like the reality of the situation and what they expect us to do.
Right. So you work in corrections, and sheriff's office is trying to write you up. You're an arm of the sheriff's department, right?
Correct.
So they have authority over you.
Correct. Yeah, I'm a sheriff's deputy who just works in corrections. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And let me guess, the policy that you broke is a policy that everyone breaks because you're probably short-staffed and you have to do it this way because it's the only way to get the job done in a timely manner. They just don't want to hear about how the sausage is made.
You're 100% right, Chuck. You're 100%
Can you,
right.
can you break that
sense.
down for me? So exactly what were they trying to pop you for?
Basically, failure to follow policy. There was
Separating
an
from the
initial.
partner.
There was an initial. The inmate said that I used excessive force, but they investigated that.
I was gonna say after he hit you with a fucking phone.
No, correct, right? Mind you, he's
committed ADW.
mind you, he's pretrial for murder, and I'm like, if he
Yeah.
incapacitates me and gets my keys and gets all the shit off my duty belt, my fellow corrections deputy, which was a female, and I'm not hating on her, but
No, it's okay.
could not have stopped him.
Gotcha.
And then the dentist, an actual civilian, is in there by, so I'm like, it's a fucking melee, right?
Right.
So they dropped the excessive force, but they did sustain the failure to follow policy.
Of course they did.
Ain't that so scapegoat? So they fucking scapegoated you.
Well, so during the 4 months that I'm at home healing, waiting to know how this policy violation is going to turn out,
Sure.
And I'm sure Chuck knows from being a lot, like if there's any kind of use of force where IA comes in, like not all, but a lot of your friends,
Sure.
they forget they fucking know you, right? Like no one calls you to check on you. No one wants to know because they want to see if you're going to get in trouble or not, and they don't want to be associated with you, right?
Yeah.
So,
but then
I'm
in
just at
general, when
home.
you're out injured, a lot of times your partners really don't call you. I had 3 people check on me, and that was it. Supervisors didn't give a fuck. No one really cared. The only time I got a call from a supervisor was a lieutenant 3 months after I was out, asking me when I was coming back. Not, are you okay? How you doing? Everything good at home? Family life okay? Your kids good? He was just like, hey, when are you coming back? I've seen you've been out for a while. You come back anytime soon? And I laughed at him, and I was like, no.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what I was going through. Now, don't get me wrong. There was a handful that would check on me, and there was a handful of supervisors that would check on me. But what was funny was they weren't my supervisors, right?
Oh, yeah. Not your buddies. Yeah. Okay, that
correct.
Makes same here.
Okay. But so I'm just at home, and I'm like, am I going to get in trouble? Meanwhile, my face is broke.
Did you guys have surgery for it? Did they have to actually go in there?
I did. Yeah.
Fuck, yeah, that's a
I've
tough
got a
one.
I've got a metal plate right here.
Yeah.
But so I started drinking. Plus, I was getting, because of the surgery, I had pain pills.
Yeah, you get the meds.
So between the legitimate pain pills, and then just self-medicating because I don't know what's going to happen in my career, I started drinking again, right? Yep. And I do come back from that, and it was funny. I put in for patrol, and the chief of corrections at the time didn't want to release. I got picked. I tried out, and I got picked. And he goes, "Well, remember, Jurgen has that write-up for that policy violation. Now, I'll give the sheriff this." He was like, "Fuck you. I'm choosing him for patrol." But he was trying to use that policy violation as a way to keep me in the jail to a part of it, I understand it's readiness issues. They don't have enough people.
Yeah,
sure.
But it's just an excuse to keep you there because he's too chicken shit,
right,
to do anything else.
So my that's when my kind of all that stuff from Iraq and the Marine Corps was kind of bubbling under the surface. But plus, I was drinking again, and that's when it really started. So when I got to patrol, I was already a functioning alcoholic.
How long were you in the jails for?
About 2.5 years.
2.5 years. Okay. And then you did not. Did you have to, or did you report back for duty in the jail before the transfer, or you were out and as you were coming back, you went directly into patrol?
No, I reported back to the jail for a certain amount of time, but once, at least the way they did it was like they don't want, because anybody that's ever worked in corrections will tell you, like, it's the Thunderdome, dude. Like, it's the fucking Thunderdome. So they don't want to take the chance of you getting in another use of force that has to be investigated, therefore delaying your transfer to patrol. So they kind of take I'm still there, but I'm not frontline. I'm doing
I understand.
administrative stuff.
They're-
Kind of
they're-
waiting
they're
for my
getting you
adult
ready.
spot to happen.
They're
Correct.
getting you ready for the transfer. Basically, you're there on
Yeah, they're
duty,
just-
but they're
Yeah.
going to put you in admin, kind of more of an administrative position. So
Mhm.
therefore, there's less of a chance of something else cock blocking you from rolling out.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, more of
thank
that
you. I'm tracking.
protective capacity, so you don't get fucked.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, the crazy thing is that we talked about it last episode, that how I lost a friend who was injured and she was out on her back, and then she just coping with other bullshit from the job and taking pain pills, and it ended up costing her ultimately her life. We talk about addiction, but we're not talking about drug addicts. We're talking about people who, they are coping. Their coping mechanisms aren't the best, and a lot of the times in law enforcement, first response, military, even in the hospitals with doctors and ER nurses and things like that, our coping mechanisms are horrible. Our functioning mechanisms are horrible. Like, we wake up, we drink energy drinks, that we use those to stay awake, and then we use depressants such as alcohol to wind down at the end of the night and to relax. So we're like, oh, I'm so stressed out, I need a beer, or I need a drink. And then you get that drink and you're like, I need a little bit more. And you're at that 3, and you're like, fuck, my back hurts. And then you pop a fucking tramadol, an oxy, a Vicodin, a fucking whatever. And then you're putting fucking muscle relaxers on top of that, because, that's what they prescribe you. And you stay on your regiment, but you still are drinking. Like, it's this weird thing. You're not intentionally meaning to mix everything, but because of that's how you learn to cope, and now you're taking the pills for pain, you're not looking at it as from that lens as, oh, I'm going to do this to get really messed up. You're doing this. I'm doing this to relax and calm down, and I'm doing this to take my pain away. But it becomes dependency. And
were your shifts also, were they kind of structured the same way when you were doing corrections, as far as like having a 10, 12 hour shift at one point?
No, they were in corrections. They were 8-hour shifts.
8-hour shifts. Okay.
8-hour shifts.
Gotcha.
And then when I got to patrol, they were 12-hour shifts.
How was that? How was that?
Surprised they didn't do that county double.
What's that?
I said I'm surprised they didn't do a county double.
No, they didn't. We were
double
8
eight
and then 12. Yeah.
That's good. That's way better.
But
what was that, Marco?
I was going to ask him how the transition was, because obviously he went from an 8-hour, and obviously they kind of scaled him back. I'll say scale him back as we talked about, for lack of a better description. They scaled him back, so he's working 8 hours, and the scaled back capacity still there, still in the Thunderdome, as you said, and then you get transferred, and now you're going from, your 8-hour shift, you're going patrol, and now you're going to a 12-hour shift. And
that transition was pretty good, actually. I didn't have any problems as far as sleep, but I started out on night shift, where every rookie starts out at, and honestly, that's where you want to, at least for me, because we always joke night shift where policy is made, right? Because we just violate fucking policy, or we come up with reasons for them to make new rules. But I would, but when you're on night shift consistently, even if you've done any kind of shift work, you never really sleep well. So you're like Chuck says, you're drinking tons of coffee, you're drinking tons of energy drinks to make it through your night shift.
Sure.
But then when you get home, you're drinking alcohol, right? And it got bad. It got to the point where, so patrol I was one of those cats that I think it was some leftover adrenaline shit from leftover business from the Marine Corps, was like, I wanted to be on the patrol team that got into the most, did the most stuff. I wanted to be, I was constantly working overtime, or, I wanted to make, like, our shifts ended at 6 a.m. So usually by 5, we're trying to wind down, right? I would still be pulling cars over at fucking 5:45, right? Therefore, by the time I cleared jail and property, it's 9 o'clock in the morning, right?
Right.
I would do stuff like that just because I was just, the adrenaline, I just couldn't get enough of it. But what was bad was my drinking would increase to the point where, and I talked about this on to someone else, that at some point I became a DUI and field sobriety instructor.
Okay.
I'm also by that time a functioning alcoholic.
I was gonna say, can you see the irony in this? Like, this is
This is
crazy.
hilarious. Not funny, but funny.
No. I tell people all that. They look at me like, I'm like, trust me, bro. I'm honest about my scumbaggery. Like, no problem. But so we would be doing these wet labs, which is where we actually, under medical supervision and law enforcement supervision, we bring in the public and we allow them to drink, so that police cadets and young officers and young deputies know how to legitimately do a field sobriety test, right?
Right.
So I'm putting on these wet labs, right? Trying to show people how to identify a drunk driver, and I'm standing right beside these students halfway in the bag, right? But I used to always joke that's what made me such a good DUI enforcement guy, because I'm like, bro, you're drunker than I am right now, so you obviously don't need to drive.
Yeah.
And I mean, shit, dude.
Honestly,
that's crazy.
It sounds like your depression from everything that happened in the military. You were depressed about that because you had to get out early, and you're like, fuck it, I'm never gonna make it. I'm not gonna be able to do my career. May as well just not waste my freaking time and get out now, right? Until you're 16 years in, and they're like, hey, we're canning you 40 years short of your fucking retirement. And that would have been way worse. So you decide to get out. You get into some shit. They're trying to hang you out to dry a little bit, making you probably even more depressed. That's just snowballing on everything until it kind of boils over. And you went through a lot of stuff, and at this point, it's kind of rolling. And if anyone who's ever drinking in excess before, it is very hard to break that cycle, because you develop a pattern and a habit. You come home, you have a few drinks, you go to bed. Police are creatures of habit. Military guys are creatures of habit. We like the habit forming things, the things that keep you on a schedule, because it makes you feel more comfortable. And I don't know, I can't explain it, but it just makes you feel like something in your life you have ultimate control over, and you can, everything is where it's supposed to be. This is my habit, and this is what I'm going to stick to. I can't tell you how many times I've seen cops they don't break that habit, and they use it for the rest of their life, and that's just how it is. And that's with everything.
100%. And it got. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and then you throw the alcohol in the mix, and then that gets involved, and so you had all those things, weighing you down and affecting you. And it's not like you said you were a scumbag. You were not a scumbag. You're coping. You were just.
I always just tell people I'm not afraid to be open about.
You're not a scumbag. You're a lovable asshole. There's a difference, bro. There's a difference.
Thank you. You know what? I'm going to use that, because I think you're 100% correct, sir.
Hey, you know what I'm saying? Hey, so now with everything that happened in the past, would you say that there was like not a disdain, but did you have like a lingering distaste, if you will, for the department, for the sheriff's office as a whole, because of not only the things that you're seeing now, but what happened with the sheriffs and the transfer and trying to cock block you?
No, because overall, my time at the sheriff's office was very positive.
Good.
Even though I was seeing it through the lens of an alcoholic. My actual issue, if I even have an issue now with the sheriff's office, is it's not with the entire agency, but there's certain people. It's odd now that I'm out of active law enforcement and I'm in school safety and security.
Right.
Like, I left the sheriff's office to do that, and for some people, it's like. They kind of just treat you like shit after that. They're like, oh, well, you left. I'm like, yeah, I left. What I'm getting at is, like, after we'll circle back to all of it, but I end up going to rehab, and I get out of rehab. I do another 3 years at the sheriff's office where I become a school resource deputy, right?
Gotcha.
But then I decide to leave and just get into school safety, specifically into school safety, right?
Okay.
There are people at the sheriff's office. Now, I still have buddies. I have a great working relationship with a lot of them. But there are some people that, because I chose to leave, that they tell people I left the sheriff's office because of my drinking issue. And I was like, bro, I was sober for 3 years before I left.
That's the haters. Yeah. That's pure hate. They're just trying to, like, we will get to that. We will, obviously we're going to work a little bit more. And I'm sorry, because what I asked kind of made you jump ahead, and that's my bad. I'll take one for the team. That's my bad. So, but I do want to go. We will talk about that. We'll talk about the haters and so on and so forth, and people that feel like that, there's always going to be people jealous because you got out and were able to spin your career to the next level. You know what I'm saying? To it's because it's not a lateral move.
100%.
What you did is not a lateral move. You know, some people stay on target, they stay hyper focused, and their natural progression of things is to level up, right? It's basically go from patrolman to corporal, from corporal to sergeant to training officer to, you know what I'm saying? Like, they'll just climb up that designated ladder. And what you did is you saw a different opportunity, which we'll talk about in a little bit, a different opportunity, and you chose to lateral career path to then shoot yourself up in a different path, which I'm sure is ultimately better for you. I'm sure it's pay wise is ultimately better for you. But I don't want to dive too much into that. Don't want to go too much into that.
Mm-hmm.
So taking it back. So now you're at the point where you mentioned you were a training officer for field sobriety tests, and which is fucking hilarious that you're sitting there in the middle of class. Again, I mean this with all due respect. You're sitting in the middle of class and you're pretty much busting yourself. You're like, I can tell how drunk you are because based on the Aaron scale of how functioning.
Like if any of those cadets really needed if any of those cadets or officers really needed a good example of what HGN should look like. Horizontal gaze nystagmus.
That's horizontal gaze nystagmus.
Yeah. I'm like, you should just turn around and look at your instructor, but no one ever thought to do that.
Oh, shit.
Hey, crazy. Sir, can you go like this and let me see your eyes bounce? So basically what HGN and VGN is horizontal gaze nystagmus and vertical gaze nystagmus. You go left to right horizontally. You go to the max point of deviation to either side. The eyes will all track over there. And then once you get to that max point of deviation, you hold it there for a second, and then you watch the eyes start to bounce like this. Once they start bouncing, you know that there's a substance like alcohol that is involved. And you go to vertical too, and they'll follow up, and you bring it to the top or the bottom, and then you watch the same thing for the bounce, which also tells you there's like drugs or like weed involved, things like that. So it's a test that you can utilize that doesn't fucking lie. You can't beat it. There's no beat
HGN. HGN is the one thing you can't beat.
Do they talk to you guys about like people who are on the spectrum? You know what I'm saying? Like anybody like out and about. Like I'm talking about not driving, but people like like someone. Like, my son's on the spectrum, right? And sometimes he's good, but sometimes he has issues with eye contact, and he's just all over the place. And he'll listen, but he will not lock eyes a lot, even though he's as smart as he is.
I actually, as a school safety officer, I really keep we are aware of that, but I'm trying to make that more mainstream, especially for all of our friends that are on the spectrum. So when I was a school safety officer at a different school, I had a large population of students that were on the spectrum.
Okay.
So what we did was we actually wrote little note cards out like, hey, this is my name. This is my diagnosis. I'm not being disrespectful, but like these are the things that trigger me, like flashing fucking blue lights, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, if you get pulled over, right, give this to the officer, and hopefully they have enough competency to be like, okay, this is what I'm actually dealing with, right?
Right.
But I did it as a safety thing for the students. But
yeah. And I wouldn't, if I pulled someone over and they obviously had a visual disability, right? Or they told me, hey, or their parents or whoever was with them, because if you had a really bad like autism, such as Asperger's, but it's on the higher end of level where it's functioning, but you probably shouldn't be driving type of thing. They'll have someone with them and they'll let you know, hey, this person come in so many times. My son has Asperger's, or he's high functioning autistic, and then you have to be really careful of touching them because you get training in mental health of certain things. So it's this all encompassing thing. I wouldn't really say it's just they teach you how to pull people over and how to deal with people. Or SMSTs. I would say it's the totality of it. All the training that you get and obtain as a law enforcement officer, such as 5150s, mental illnesses, all encompassing, and they teach you, how to act with people who are on the spectrum and things like that. So I wouldn't, if I pulled someone over and they're autistic and maybe they're weaving, and then they said, hey, handed me that card, I'd be like, okay, I don't smell alcohol, I would let them go. I wouldn't even try giving them an SFST, because at that point I might have to go hands on and be like, hey, this is what you do, and it might set them off. And if I set them off and we get into a fight, I'm going to be the person at fault, right? They harp on this shit in the academy. At least my agency did with the whole hey, be very careful on when you're dealing with people, especially
Right.
those who have like autism. If you put your hands on, you have to know how to interact with everybody, and they put you through a lot of that. And honestly, my agency that I'm involved with has probably one of the most in-depth. Now they have a lot of things that they're fucked up on. Don't get me even started, and soon I'll be able to talk about it. But they have such good training when it comes to 5150s and mentally ill. It's not just like a fucking 30-hour course you do, or however many hour course you do in the academy. They have follow on. They have like a whole week, 2-week fucking school that you learn absolutely everything involved. So it's pretty good and pretty in depth. I learned a lot. I got taught a lot. And they definitely teach you how to deal with people who are 5150 or have a mental illness or disability.
I was a crisis intervention officer as well, and we had to do an intensive where we basically did clinical hours amongst the mentally ill.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
that's awesome.
And it just couple that with field sobriety. That's where I got the idea of the cards, because I'm like,
that's awesome.
My students are all middle school and high school. They're going to be driving soon if they're not driving already, or they're going to get a car with their parents that gets pulled over.
Right. That's great. It's a great idea. I hope, honestly, I hope it takes off. And I think I'm literally going to do it. I'm going to do it. Obviously, as Chuck, Aaron, we just met last week, but my son's young, but it's a good idea to start, just to do that.
And if you can, if you put like a sticker on your car, like an autism sticker,
like an autism awareness sticker. Yeah.
They do that with deaf people.
Oh yeah.
So
we actually
deaf people, they can tell you're trying to pull someone over and they ain't pulling over. You're like, what the fuck? Finally, they realize and go, oh, okay, and they pull over and then they'll either sign like, hey, I'm fucking deaf, or you'll be able to tell right off the bat, or they'll hand you something, and and then you're like, oh, okay, cool. And then you can write down everything. Like I've done so many investigations with deaf people, but they tell you like, hey, I'm deaf. I can't.
Right.
I can read your lips. But so it's like that's been around for a while, and I think it's a good idea, especially with those who have autism, to just let them know, because not every agency is going to be given the training on
it is a spectrum.
How to deal with people with that.
It is a spectrum. It looks different. There's not
like this,
one. Absolutely, not everyone's trigger is the same. Not everyone's, not everyone acts the same. Not every person on the spectrum, looks the same. Look, you know what I'm saying? It's like, that's why it is like it is a spectrum. But sorry, Aaron, circling back. So now you've been working for a while now. Now, do you have anybody or buddies? Obviously, no names or anything like that. Do you have anybody else in the agency that you're aware of that also is using alcohol as a self-medication? Yeah. He's like, fuck yeah. It's like
everybody. And honestly, and I happened to be on a patrol team at one time where we were all either Marine Corps or Army combat veterans.
Right? Okay.
So we were go-getters as far as going out and stopping cars and all that good stuff. And
you had a group of guys that were like that too.
Yeah, man. And it was funny because everybody knew, but it was like that thing that's unspoken. Like
of course.
Every once in a while, like your buddy be like, "Jurgen, bro, are you good?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'm good." And really, I was at work producing. I was taking guns off the street. I was taking dope off the street. I wasn't just making an arrest. I was making high quality arrests, right?
I understand.
Right. They didn't, as long as that didn't bleed over into work, I could be totally off the rails after work, which I was, until I almost got caught.
Okay.
I had a supervisor at the time who pulled me aside after a lineup, and he was like, "Hey, man, I've heard you might be drinking at work." And I was like, "Ooh, definitely not," which was true. It was not a lie. I was not drinking at work.
Right.
But I would definitely say that I was drinking close enough to shift.
Sure, I understand.
I definitely had alcohol in my system, which is still a clear policy violation.
Okay.
Because you got into a shooting and they fucking test you.
Exactly. So I played.
Not
it
every
off.
shooting do they test. But.
Right. I played it off, and I was like, "No, Sarge." I said, "I just, He goes, "Well, you smell like margaritas." And I'm like, rough night, but that was last night, man. I'm good to go. He's like, okay.
Now, were margaritas your choice over there? Is that Were you a mimosa guy in the morning? Are you a margarita guy? Are you a Red Bull and Jaeger? You know what I'm saying? I'm just asking.
Well, when I was in the Marine Corps, I was a Red Bull and Jaeger dude.
Oh, fuck.
See,
What's
see,
wrong
Chuck,
with you?
Chuck, I told you.
Yeah.
I was a bouncer at a bar for years, man. That's why I knew. That's why, like, Jaeger and Red Bull. He's like, yeah, Jaeger.
Dude, I've thrown up so hard off that I can't do it anymore.
I was a bourbon guy. I was a bourbon guy.
Sure,
right?
yeah.
I was a bourbon guy, but for some reason he thought I smelled like.
Because you're a man. Because you're a man, sir.
Thank you. But I was like, no, man, I'm good. But I used to. It got bad enough to the point, like, because it got bad enough to where, like, I would do a couple shots before shift just to be like. Have to
even yourself out, so you wouldn't.
Yeah, to loosen up. Yeah, to get ready for you. It became part of your get ready routine.
Because I'm like, I'm gonna have to deal with sacks of shit for the next 12 hours. So let me just, So you would have thought that would have been enough to scare me straight.
Okay.
And it didn't. It did not.
So ultimately, what did?
What did was this. It was the only time that I've ever blacked out.
Really?
But I was off one day.
Okay,
and started drinking, before noon, and drank throughout the day. And I just remember waking up and my wife being extremely upset with me, and she just looked heartbroken. And I was like, I don't know what I said or did. But I was like, if I want to continue to have access to my family, I need to get a handle on this thing. It's kind of like the wake up call. Like that was the wake up call, right?
Now, did you know that you blacked out? Or were you just like, you kind of woke up and you're like, what happened? Or did you just believe you fell asleep?
No, I woke up and Mrs. Jurgen was livid, and I was on the living room floor.
We've been there.
I'm waiting for it to get worse.
But what's sad is, and this is the part that bothers me.
Go ahead.
I still tell it, but it bothers me.
It's okay.
I was responsible for my children that day.
Oh fuck! Oh shit!
Right, and I don't remember anything.
Oh dude!
Right, so anything could have happened to the kids. Anything, and I'm just the asshole.
Here we go.
That's passed out on the floor.
I gotta ask for the podcast and just for the story purposes. How old were they at this time? You have to be specific. Just
3 and 1.
Oh fuck!
Oh shit! So that's fucking young. I see why, because like the whole time you're explaining this, I'm like, fuck, man. Like I've blacked out a couple times and woken up on the floor and been like, fuck. But that wasn't enough to scare me straight. But I didn't have kids at the time, or I was like really young. I was like, whatever.
Yeah, it's a different dynamic.
Whatever I had said to my wife, and as far as well as anything could have happened to my kids, especially the part about my kids that rips my fucking heart out.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, because you're not trying to hurt them. You're not trying to affect them. You're trying to handle your own emotions and your own shit. Yet when it bleeds out onto them and you see how much what you are doing is directly impacting them.
And I saw a quote once,
just fucking killer.
I saw a quote once that said, if it's raining in your world, your children should never get wet.
Right. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and it stuck with me. So the next day, I was supposed to go to work, but I was like, fucking no. So I I called in, but again, I didn't call in quick enough, so some asshole tried to write me up for that after the fact.
What, dude?
Yeah. Like I get, like in the moment, you think I'm just missing shift, right? But
right.
Once you realize what's going on, I'm like
the severity. Yeah.
Humans, maybe.
Yeah.
So I drove to the VA, checked myself in, and I said, I just need help. And I was probably the most vulnerable I've ever been in my life, because I was like, I don't know what to do, and I need help. And they're like, would you have an appointment, sir? And I'm like, no, motherfucker. But I'm at the end of my goddamn rope, so here I am, right? So I agreed to go to rehab. So the rehab hospital, the main rehab hospital is in Nashville, Tennessee, which is about a 2-hour drive north of me.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
So it was voluntary. So the ambulance comes, they pick me up, right? They take me to Nashville. But then it was so sobering because as soon as those doors close behind you, they lock. It's voluntary for as long as you agree to comply with the treatment.
Oh shit!
Right? Yeah. The minute I would have said I want to leave, they would have put me on paper. Well, now I'm a substance abuse or mental health holder.
Right.
Now, now it comes like, well, can he be a cop? Can he have a firearm? Like, I don't need that smoke in my life, right?
Right.
So I was like, of course I'll stay here. And the first 72 hours were horrible, especially the first 48 hours, man. I thought I was dying. Like, I was seeing shit. I was throwing up.
Withdrawals can kill you.
100%. And a lot of people don't know this, but the only withdrawal that can legitimately kill you is actually alcohol withdrawal.
Yeah, well, that and I think there's two. There's that and it's Xanax.
Okay.
Xanax
I didn't know that.
Kill you.
Okay.
Yeah, but a lot of times it's because it's being mixed with alcohol and you have both. But yeah, I was taking Xanax for a while, and my doctor was like, "Hey man, like, are you taking this regularly?" I'm like, "Yeah, it helps. It's the only thing that's working right now." And he goes, I can't give you any more, man. You're gonna kill yourself. And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
And I was like,
"Wow,
can I get another bottle?" And I'll just stop taking it. He's like, "I got you," and sent me another bottle. And then another prescription on top of that to help me wean off of that stuff, and I still have my Xanax for flying. So,
but I was so medically dependent on it that I had to be medically detoxed from it through medication.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah, and that took about 3 days, and then I was there for a total of about 10 days, and then it kind of became therapeutic. You would have therapy sessions, and I think they call it a therapeutic breakthrough in the business. I had a therapeutic breakthrough on somebody's couch, and I realized that actually drinking wasn't my problem. I mean, it was, but it was shit from childhood, shit from the Marine Corps, shit from Iraq. Once I dealt with that, it actually, and once I was actually medically detoxed from booze, i.e. my body didn't depend on it, I didn't even want to drink anymore. It was actually pretty easy to quit after that.
Okay.
Wow. So once you got rid of the, so there's a chemical reaction that happens in the body, I think with ghrelin, and some other bullshit chemicals that cause your body to crave the sugar in the alcohol.
Interesting.
Which causes you to become super dependent upon that the same way gluten and sugar and cheese also affect your body because it opens up a pathway in your brain, the same pathway that opiates affect. So basically you're craving these foods because you're getting this chemical reaction in your brain that's causing you to be super addictive, and your body starts to crave it.
Right, actually, and that's what the medicine they gave me was basically it was like a lower dose version of Narcan, which is what you give heroin addicts. Right?
Yeah. Because these same pathways affect the same ones as opiate, and it will turn into an opioid substance in your body.
Correct.
Wow.
Correct. And that's what I used. And I still use, even though once I got out of the hospital, I was still on that medicine for about 6 months. But when I got off the medicine, the sugar thing hit me. Like, I was still craving sugar. I didn't want to drink, but my body was still craving sugar. So I started eating candy all the damn time, and I gained like fucking 30 pounds.
Did you have candida in your body?
You know, that part I don't know, man. Like, I'm aware of what that is, but I don't know.
Google it. When we get out of here, Google it, and it can answer a lot of questions. And if you still have those cravings in the past, that might be a big thing. What's crazy thing is that we spoke and we said we're going to kind of go back to it. You know, we got about a little bit of time left. We're going to circle back to this. Now, you were having these problems in the law enforcement, and you went out injured with your orbital socket to begin with, and that no one talked to you, and people just kind of just wrote you off. And then you got into patrol, and you're dealing with all these things, and you're working on a patrol team. You were doing the SFST thing because now you're an expert in the field. And then you go to rehab because you had a really bad incident where you woke up on the ground after blacking out and you were supposed to be taking care of your kids and you didn't know where they were, and it was be sobering enough to wake anyone up, and that drove you to immediately check yourself into rehab and all that stuff. Now, did you feel like your department at this point kind of wrote you off and didn't really pay attention to you, and you kind of felt ostracized by your agency? Or at this point, once they knew what was going on, did they put out more helping hands and stuff like that to really help you?
Initially, I felt very ostracized. I really did. Like I said, there were still some people that were checking on me, but nobody really wanted to touch me. And then
that
it was
sucks.
like, then I got cleared to come back to work. Right, I had to get medically cleared, and then I had to go see the psychiatrist and get mentally cleared. I do all that, and then I sit at home for another, 2 fucking months.
So you're still on leave at this time for medical leave, but
correct,
for 2 months, and then you're still dealing with it. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
And it's like, I think the total from start to finish was about 4 months.
4 months. Okay.
But I had been cleared fairly, once I got out of rehab, I had been cleared fairly quickly, but then they just set on me because they were like, how are we going to
they want to see if you're going to relapse.
Yeah, true. They're, how are we going to treat this guy? Are we going to treat him like, somebody that had a problem that we're trying to help? Or, like I said, there was still that same asshole that was like, well, he didn't call in. He didn't call in when he missed shift. And I'm like, well, what the
That's
fuck?
So stupid.
Yeah. So
dumb.
Initially it was, but then some of the higher ups in the department just happened to see me out and about, and they're like, we're working on getting you back, man. We're working on getting you back. How's everything going? I'm like, I'm cool. I'm sober, man. Everything's good. I would love to come back to work because the last thing I want to do is just sit in my house by myself. So it did. Initially, yeah, I felt ostracized, but there was kind of a switch where at least a bulk of the department was like, yo, can Jurgen come back to work now?
Yeah. Once, because they know you're healthy, they know you're okay, they know you're good. And I got to say, that is a really bad part about law enforcement culture. And I've talked about it so many times. Law enforcement culture has this fucking stigma or whatever the heck it is. And I don't know that this needs to be broken because it's completely ass backwards. And it's the most nonsensical thing. We're here to help people, right? As cops, first responders, right? But when our partners go down, we don't talk to them. Now, I'm not saying that's everybody, 100% of the department. I'm saying it's a good portion of the department. It could be 60%, 70%. I know when my partners went down that I was friends with and they were out injured or they were dealing with some shit, I'd be checking in on them once a month, once a week, at least once a month. And if it was really bad, every fucking night, right? And that was what I did on my time. But being out injured for the last 3 fucking years, going through what I've been going through, no one's contacted me. There's been very few, like I said, and it seems like the same thing happened to you, Aaron. And it's this culture inside of the department that as soon as you go out injured, you're a slap, you're a POS. You're just doing it because you just don't want to be here, and you're just, you're trying to milk the system for everything that it's worth because there are people out there that have abused it, like in the military. I'm sure, Aaron, you remember lingers.
So you're almost seeing like
pieces of shit.
So you're almost seeing like a welfare recipient at that point. Is that what you're saying? Like basically everyone looks down on you and you're just trying to abuse the system and trying to milk the system for everything that's got.
Well, in a way, that was like a blessing in disguise for me when I decided to leave law enforcement and transition solely into school safety. Was I loved what I did. The department overall was a great experience.
Yeah.
I still have a great relationship with some of them guys.
Sure.
But I just realized, I'm like, not individual deputies and not individual leadership, but the organism that is the sheriff's office.
Sure.
I was like, I'm just a fucking cog in the wheel. If I die,
you're a number, bro.
Right. You're a number.
If I die, if I were to die in the line of duty, they would remember me for a few weeks, maybe a few months. They would probably put my name on something shiny, but you're going to hire someone else, right? And it's 100%. I don't get mad about it. I'm not. It's just it is what it is.
Yeah,
so I was like, so to walk away from it actually made that part because of that, because I just had this epiphany about it. It made it extremely easy for me to walk away from it. But I think some of those people that still kind of hate, I think that their whole identity is that thing, and they don't realize, like, hey man, if something happens, they will eventually replace you because they have to, because that's the nature of the
Sure.
Again, I don't take it personal. Like, I realize that's the way it works, but it made it easy for me to leave.
And being that identity, having law enforcement as a whole be your identity is so hard to break. And I would say majority of the officers, it is our identity. We are a cop. We carry our gun off duty. We carry sometimes our badge off duty, but I carry my ID on me that has my badge on it every fucking day, no matter where I go. I also have a shooting card in there. If I get into a shooting off duty, I know my rights, and I can use that for an interview. So it's like these things, even out after being out injured for such a long time, I'm still going to qualify. I had my doctor bill. I can go and qualify at the range so I can carry my gun, because there's 2 people out here who want to harm me. But it's so hard to drop that identity. When you go home, you may leave your work at the door at the station, but it is going to follow you home in multiple ways. It's going to follow you home in your sleep, in dreams. It's going to follow you home with criminals that you've put away that may or may not be in the area that you live.
Sure.
And I live far away from where I used to work.
Right.
For that reason.
Yeah, right down the street from my daughter's first school out here where I live, I had a multi-3 felony robbery at gunpoint arrest, and one of the main suspects that had the gun lived across the street from her fucking school, and I had no idea. I thought I lived far enough away. So that shit follows you home. So you're like, oh, it's not your identity. It's not your identity. How can it not be your identity when literally every time you turn around, something there is reminding you of it, or something that you're doing for it, or you're constantly out hyper vigilant. Right. Hey, where's that guy? Where's I need to make sure that I'm scanning everybody I'm walking by and watching their hands, because what if it's someone I've put away and they recognize me before I recognize them? So you're in this hyper state of awareness constantly, and it's so hard to fucking break, right? Because they've preached it. In the academy, you are never off duty. Keep your head on a fucking swivel. So how do you not make that your identity? Everything you do, you're constantly wearing things out in town. I have a fucking fanny pack that carries my gun in it, a fucking tourniquet. It has an extra bar to eat in case I get hungry. I'm stuck somewhere. It's like a mini go bag on my waist, because it's been ingrained in me, to be prepared all the fucking time, that it's literally your identity, and it's so hard to break. And, I think I'm glad you were able to break it and be like, this isn't my identity, but I'm still a part of you, whether you want to believe it or not.
No, it is. I'm not disagreeing with you, because I make a joke about it. Like, I'm not a cop anymore, but I can't, if a car passes me, I can't not look at his license plate.
I still read them because it's fun.
I do too, bro. I do too. Or I'll be like, oh, that would be a good stop. Like, if you know, like, oh, that would be a good stop.
And I almost whipped on some cars. I'm like, oh fuck. I'm like, oh, I'm not a cop car. I'm not a cop car. Or
I will say this: like, the very first day. As a matter of fact, I was technically still a police officer, because my day didn't end until 4 p.m. But by 1 o'clock, I was already checked out, had turned all my shit in. I'm in my civilian car. I'm driving home, and a car just blows past me on the highway, and I go and I'm like, what an asshole! Like, why would you blow past a cop like that? And I reach up to flip on my lights and realize
there's no lights there.
You're in your POV.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I think for me, a lot of it, in addition to the school safety stuff, I do a lot of security training and self-defense training, because like the stuff you're talking about, Chuck, like always being prepared. I've kind of taken that out of the cop realm, and like because I want everyday citizens to be just as prepared for their own self-defense, because
I think we need that.
No one wants to be a cop anymore, because of a lot of stuff that's happened in the news the past 3 or 4 years. No one wants to be a cop anymore. So they lower hiring standards. They can't fill their academies. Like, I tell people all the time, I'm like, now more than ever, like when I train my students in my classes, I'm like, now more than ever, you should expect a self-rescue. So now more than ever, you need to become proficient with a firearm. If you live in a state like I do, where you can get your license and your concealed carry permit, you need to do so. If guns just aren't your thing, and I get that for some people, I'm like, you need to become familiar with some more less than lethal technology. You need to become familiar with some self-defense. You need CPR, AED. You need stop the bleed. You need all those things, because cops, unfortunately, and it's not cops' fault. It's society's fault. It's politicians' fault, and it's some bad cops' fault. but it's like they spoiled it, they ruined it for the rest of us. So I'm like,
Sure.
cops aren't always coming. You know, when you look at a place like Detroit, Michigan, where their average response time is 58 minutes, cops aren't always coming.
Flint's got like a 24-hour response time.
Yeah. I read an article. I read the article the other day. It was one of the major cities in Pennsylvania. I don't know if it's Philly or not, but they were so short-staffed that unless it's a violent crime in progress, they're not responding. So I'm like,
same thing in Flint, Michigan, dude.
Yeah, man.
Bro, there's even times where. Yeah, there's even times where I watched the documentary in Flint, whatever the fuck it was, with the cops.
I saw that on Netflix.
Yeah, and literally they were saying for some of our response times, like they were dealing with this one robbery and they responded to it, and the guy's like, "It happened fucking yesterday. I already have stitches. They already took my shit. What are you guys gonna do?" Like, well, we can take a report for you and then investigate it. He's like, "Man, get the fuck out of here!" And he tells him to get out, and I'm like, "Holy shit, dude! You responded to a robbery almost 24 hours after the fact." Get out of here, bro. But here's the thing, when no one wants to do the job because we're killing it from the inside, it's not the citizens and the shit out there that's killing law enforcement. It's us on the inside. Right. Our own officers in our agencies are killing it. Like fucking Aaron said, you had, captains or whatever, the sheriff or whatever, trying to ding him for dumb shit. We're doing things that are actively destroying our morale, and we're not protecting our officers. They don't feel comfortable. They don't feel like doing their job because they're afraid if they do their job, their own agency is going to turn their back on them. We're killing it from the inside. And what's that going to cause? It's going to cause a ripple effect. No one's going to do the job anymore because we're not being protected. So guys are just going to fucking leave. They're not even going to retire. They're just going to be like, I'm changing my career. Fuck it.
Right.
And they're going to leave. And that leaves the citizen, Marco, you, yourself, me, out here to protect our own family and to take our protection into our hands. Because if we call... it's also firsthand. The response time could be fucking 10 minutes for an emergency in a life or death situation.
It's scary to think about this way because life is relative, and positions, careers, everything is relative, right? So if you're not taking care of the seniors are only looking out for their own asses, right? They're looking to protect their own, but they're not looking to protect the next line down, the lieutenants, the captains that are taking care of the captains, the lieutenants. But if no one's taking care of like the actual watch commanders and the training officers, and I mean like properly training and standing behind the shit and and going through what needs to be done in order to perpetuate, like you're talking about, a good work. The work side of things, right? The good working environment, good conducive working environment. People at that level are going to leave, and those are actually the ones that are more important because those are the ones that are actually in charge of bringing in the new batch, the rookies. Those are the ones in charge of training the new generation coming in. You know what I'm saying? At the point in time where someone reaches lieutenant and captain, and obviously I've never been in law enforcement. You guys all know that, and I'm very, very open and honest about that. That I speak. I come in this podcast as the civilian voice, asking questions and asking things that that you guys would normally not, because you guys have been in it, right? So the thing that sticks out to me when you guys mention something like this is from a business sense. Like if you're getting rid of all your other people that are important to train the new generation in, you're systematically breaking down your company, your business, your regiment. You don't have proper training, and then
selling it for fucking parts, basically.
Absolutely, you're stripping yourself apart, and you're stripping yourself apart to protect your bottom line. You protect, because I hate to say it, but it comes down to protecting your pension, your personal pension, your money, your saying like your outlook in the community, and your community's outlook on you. It becomes about you and not the overall department. And that to me as a civilian is very, very scary to think about, that somebody in charge is more concerned about them when they're supposed to be in a position to be in charge of not only the community, but to be in charge of the subordinates, everyone around them that is actually physically out there. I said it before and I'll say it again, that policing and police officers above like EMT and firefighters, as far as first responders are concerned, have become the number one most thankless job in America. You know what I'm saying? Oh, yeah. Did I come back? I just came back, right?
It's been the most thankless job in America.
The most thankless job in America, and nobody wants to be a cop. Everyone wants to talk shit about cops, but at the same time, everyone knows that we need police. We need police, right, out there. I don't give a fuck how tough you are. When it comes in, the shit comes down to shit. someone's going to call law enforcement. You know what I'm saying? Someone's going to cost law enforcement. And I just feel like from hearing you guys, I definitely, man, I want to, Chuck, I want to set up a panel where if we can have like multiple guests talk about this aspect of it, the inner workings. I would love to sit in and like hear about like the more inner workings as far as like the delegation of duties and the actual inner workings, like what you guys just said, as far as like departments tearing themselves apart. It's fucking crazy to me. That's fucking crazy.
Be a whole. That's a whole episode, dude. Like literally, that's 2 episodes. The fucking whole.
Because
that destroys businesses. You know,
it's kind of a double-edged sword. Right. I'm starting to kind of see is, not only do good cops not want to be cops anymore, that now, and you also have cops that are good cops.
Sure.
But in this current political environment, they're close to retirement. They don't want to fuck that up. So they don't take the action they probably should take because they don't need protection.
Yeah.
And then we don't have an honest conversation that because we need cops, they're lowering hiring standards. So now when I train civilian students in concealed carry, I'm like, cops aren't always coming. And I hate to say this, it kills me as a former police officer to say what I'm about to say next, but I say it in every class. Cops aren't always coming. And now because of lax hiring standards, the cops that are coming may not be the cops you want.
Yeah, they may be shitty cops that are fucking corrupt. Because what happened last time, a major agency decided to lower hiring standards. The fucking Rampart scandal. And if you don't know what that is, just go look it up. And that was probably one of the biggest black eyes in law enforcement history. Other than the whole George Floyd thing and that whole handling, but that's a whole nother topic. And points of views and shit on that. But the Rampart scandal was definitely a big black eye, and that was directly related to lax hiring standards.
100%.
And so it's you're right. They may not be the cops that you want coming. They may be fucking.
And man, bro, I hate saying that. But I'm like, I still have friends that are in the business.
True.
And they're in the academy. They're trainers, and they're like, we're having to give, matter of fact, in the state of Tennessee, in the academy, you can fail one event and you're allowed to have one retest. And if you pass the retest, you're Gucci until you fail something else, right?
Right.
I'm confident when I say this. This is not, I heard it from the horse's mouth.
Sure.
They are taking kids, and when I say kids, young adults, but they're letting them reattempt tasks, whether they're written tests or practical application tests, 10, 15 times because they need people, or they need people to look a certain kind of way,
Yeah, because it used to be
that we don't want to talk about either.
Right, and it used to be if you double tap, you fail. Well, also, they don't want to talk about that because it fucking goes against policy, so they really don't want to talk about it because that is a policy that is ingrained in every agency with hiring standards and professionalism, and within the academy. If you double tap a test, you're fucking out because you can't have. You're dealing with people's lives and you're taking away their personal liberties and you're taking away their freedoms. You're the only person in this world, in this country, who can take away someone else's fucking freedoms on the side of the road. If they do something stupid, you can just take their shit away. You're mine now. I can put you in a car. I can take you wherever I want, put you in handcuffs, put you in a cage is basically essentially what you're doing. So having these lax standards, how are you
scary?
How do you? Yeah, it's scary. How do you?
It's scary as
other people and citizens against getting fucking screwed over because this person took 15 times to pass a test, which is ridiculous, of simple law. How do you know when he goes to the streets that he's going to understand that law and be able to articulate that law? That doesn't make me feel safe. In fact, that scares the shit out of me. And I'm a cop.
Matter of fact, and without giving out too much, spilling too much tea, how about they allow a certain agency, it wasn't the sheriff's office that I worked for, but it was a certain neighboring agency, allowed a young man to test multiple times in order to pass. So then a year later, he gets indicted for sexual misconduct on duty. Now,
is this the OnlyFans guy?
No. No, he was trading favors to get out of tickets. Is what he was doing.
Oh, so okay.
But I'm like,
yeah, hey,
but I'm
girl,
like, he
let you out.
should have
Was
right.
it
But I'm like, he should have never been a
like
cop in the first place. If
like
we would
like
have
glory
just
hole?
upheld, if we
Same
would have just
like
upheld the
glory hole
standard
favor?
on the front end, we wouldn't have to worry about this multi-million-dollar lawsuit and all this bad press on the back end, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
100%. Yeah, it leads to all this bad shit, and you know we're kind of getting towards the end. We're kind of run out of time, but I want to know.
I'm like, buddy, we were out of time like 10 minutes ago. You know what I'm
I know, but it's okay because we're here today.
saying?
Anyways, real quick, you took my train of thought, man. You left 3 years after you came back from rehab, right? To go and do the whole school resource deal, and to train people with firearms and stuff like that, and, you know, situational awareness and things like that. Why did you leave? Can you just sum it up real quick? I mean, you got clean on the department.
Sure.
And let me just tell everyone this real quick. Agencies know that there are drinking problems within departments and substance abuse problems within departments because it's written into most policies. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. It's written into most policies that if you come to them prior to getting caught at work, like prior to getting caught for popping on a drug test for opiates or for fucking uppers or downers or fucking depressants like alcohol or being drunk on duty, if you come to them prior and say I have a fucking problem, they will put you up in a rehab facility and pay for it.
Okay.
It's known. It's built into most, and I can only speak for my agency, but it's built into most from what I've heard, is that if you come, they will put you up, send you to rehab, send you back. So after you did all that rehab stuff, you got clean off of alcohol, right? And it's not controlling your life. Why did you leave after battling so hard to come back and get your job?
Sure, good question. Because my last 3 years, I spent as a school resource officer, and I actually fell in love with, and I thought I would hate it because I'm like, I'm not going to babysit any kids. But that was a way at the time at my department to kind of write your own ticket because they needed school resource officers so bad. I'm like, I'll do this for a few years, then I'll go put in for the detective bureau or something like that. And I actually fell in love with it. And then because they needed more school resource officers and the sheriff's office couldn't hire enough at the time, the school district started their own school safety officer program, which is, it's not law enforcement, it's just school security, right? But all the school related stuff is the exact same thing I did as a school resource officer. And I got into it and I just fell in love with it. And I kind of felt like that was kind of my niche. Right. So I coupled it with my training and teaching stuff that I was doing, and just never looked back, man, after that.
Same pay?
Better.
Oh, shit. Okay, that makes sense.
That's the dream.
And and guess what? You're not putting your life on the line every day. I mean, you still can if someone comes.
I just have to worry about somebody trying to come harm my students and my staff. Other than that, I'm not going out looking for crimes off campus.
Right.
And how fast you're going to put them down.
But how good of a thing that you're there from a father's point of view, someone who's got 2 kids in elementary school right now. Like I love it. You know what I'm saying? Like the school where my kids are at, they don't have it's elementary school. They don't have a resource officer there. You know what I'm saying? On staff. They luckily smaller towns, so the response and there are officers there in the morning. You know what I'm saying? Like when people are first getting there, kids are in both main interests, which I feel great about. But throughout the day, I mean, luckily when smaller towns, so the response is very, very fast in this area. Like very fast. Like scary.
Well,
fast.
since Uvalde, they're gonna get there real fucking fast.
For sure. And I am in Texas. And actually, Uvalde. Oh man, I'll talk about that one day. I actually did a memorial tattoo for a parent of one of the Uvalde. Okay, that was. I was ugly crying by the end with her. I had to like take a break to finish the tattoo. But yeah, I mean it's amazing that you do that, and it's also from a civilian standpoint, bro. Aaron, you know, I think we're close now. It's awesome that you are, whether you charge for it or not. It's amazing that you are willing, ready, and able to go out there and pass that knowledge on to whoever's seeking it that may have not been able to join the armed forces or be a first responder, or just never went down that path, but wants to be more self-aware, more aware of their surroundings, and just know the safety and know how to tow it. I mean, here in Texas, it's constitutional carry.
Right.
Woo, woo.
Great.
But again, caring without knowledge does nothing. You know, saying just because you can carry doesn't mean that you should carry, and just because you can carry doesn't mean that you are ready to act in the right capacity when when the shit goes down. When the shit goes down, you better be ready. As you know, be
Training.
Yeah, training.
Yeah, and so as we get ready to close out, I just want to say, Aaron, I mean, you saw what was important right in front of your face, and I'm not saying you saw what was important and left because the law enforcement isn't important to you. No, it's important. And a lot of officers are going to be out there, and you're going to find balance as a cop, and it's going to be great for you. It seems like you found balance somewhere else, and that's completely okay. And you need to know when it's your time to move on, and your glass, how full it is. We all have a glass, and it might be half full. It might be 3/4 of the way to the bottom, or a quarter at the bottom, or almost to the top, overflowing. So you got to just know when your cup is getting towards its limit. And if it's towards its limit at 8 years or 10 years, and that's when you got to call it, it's okay. And you find something else. You just do it smartly. And I'm just going to say this. I heard it from another law enforcement officer. The only person who's going to remember that you stayed late from work and you worked all that overtime is not going to be your boss. It's not
your kids.
They don't care. It's your kids and your family. They are going to remember every time you were not there because of work. They're going to know every time you stayed late for a late arrest. You are losing time. I'm not saying, you should leave law enforcement. I'm just saying that know what's important in your life, and that could be anything, and then act on it, because that is very important. And if you have friends who are struggling, I said this last episode, if you have friends who are struggling with substance abuse or addiction, whether it be alcohol or not, check in on them, try to get them help, and try to lead them, not manage them or micromanage, try to lead them into a better path through affirmations and being just a good friend. And if you know that someone's struggling, most of the time we're like, hey man, you want to go talk and grab a beer? Try not to say that. It's like, hey, you want to go grab a bite to eat, maybe some coffee or something, have a chat, and try to get them on a more level playing field. But yeah, be out there and checking on your friends. And I think that's the most important thing. That's what I want people to take away really from this. Know your worth and know what really matters in your life, and check on your friends, because
absolutely.
Yeah. So as we're getting ready to close out, Aaron, we give our guests a chance to dedicate every episode to the episode that they're on to a fallen brother or sister. And I understand that you have a dedication today.
I do. It is to Deputy Donald Bond from the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I always like to put his story's kind of older, but I like to put it out there because he was killed in the line of duty on September 6, 2000. It's September 6, 2001. And everybody knows what happened on September 11th, so he kind of gets forgotten about, and I will never forget him.
Wow. Well, rest easy, brother. We've got it from here. Wow, that's
heavy.
That's great. That's powerful. And I just want to say thank you, everybody, today for listening. Aaron, thank you so much for coming on. It was truly a pleasure. And I think that a lot of the things that you spoke about are really going to impact other people and help them. And I think that's very important. And
thank you for being honest. Thank you for putting it out there. You know what I'm saying? Thank you for opening up.
I mean, because I know that I'm not the only one. We know that.
Right,
but some people I'm like, if someone, a man or a woman, can look at me and be like, you know what, he put that out there, and I know I'm going through the same thing, and he's doing okay now.
Right. Okay. Well, some people, like to believe that it's not okay. It's the whole suffer in silence thing. People think that maybe they're not the only ones going through it, but they cannot relate the same way, even though we all go through similar things for different reasons, but we all as humans go through similar things, guys and girls. So there is, help for everybody out there. Yeah. Aaron did the right thing as far as recognizing where he was at. I'm not going to say the problem. I'll just say Aaron did a great job of recognizing where he was at. And it took a lot of times, unfortunately, it takes a fucked up situation or something to kind of put our perspective. I know that it did for me eventually. and something happens that kind of snaps you back into reality as far as like, hey, you know, what are the things that are important in my life? Whether you want to believe whether yourself that you're not important, that's fine. But the other things around you that's important for Aaron, obviously, if you guys heard the whole podcast, it was his family, especially his young kids at that point in time. We are thankful. You know, we're thankful for him. We're thankful for his family. We're thankful that, you know, that we can be here talking about it. And I can't thank you enough for coming on here and being brave and you know, laying it all out there so it can help so everyone understands that you are not alone. You will never be alone. You never fight alone. You only believe that you're fighting alone. But when you actually take a moment to open up your eyes for a little bit of clarity, if you look to your left and your right, you will see that your family and your true brothers and sisters, whether they're blood or non-blood, are actually been there the entire time, standing next to you, willing, ready, and able to fight for you. We've said it a million times on the podcast. If you are, I'm not going to say if you're hurting, but if you want to talk, we're here to talk. We don't have to do it on the air. We don't have to do it live. If you want to get us, you know, in a quote unquote room like this, like we're talking to Aaron right now, we can, and we'll be here for you. Will I be talking shit and cracking jokes the entire time? Probably. It's what I do. It's my thing. It's how I personally cope with shit. Is to make light humor out of everything. But at the end of the day, it all starts with the simplest thing in the world. It was just one of the first things that we learn how to do as human beings, which is to utilize your voice and talk. And we're here for it. And thank you, Aaron, again. Thank you.
But if it turns out you just want to shoot the shit and you're really not struggling, I'm gonna kick your ass to the fucking curb.
I mean, if you're catfishing us, I'm gonna applaud you for the catfish. But then we're gonna roast you. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna get the fucking.
We're gonna destroy your shit.
Oh, 100%. Aaron, I personally would definitely like to have you back again. Obviously not next week because come on, yeah. But have you again and talk further about like the inner workings, and we talked about like the, you know, I compare it to a business as far as the self-destruction aspect of the business of law enforcement, of running law enforcement. Yeah, I'd like to get a couple more people on the panel and really kind of break that down. If you would be cool with that and having it, you know,
yeah, man, let me know.
Putting up with this again.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Aaron, for coming on, and thank you all today for listening. If you like today's content in the podcast, please follow us on our Instagram and our Facebook. Our Instagram is @war_stories_official and podcast. Click the link in both of those bios. You can go to our Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or our website, which is www.warstoriesofficial.com. We have some gear there. It is running low. We're redoing everything, so be patient with us. We're going to try to come back with a lot more things, with faster shipping times and you know,
whole new designs,
around better.
We're slow right now, guys. We're a whole new rack of designs. We're not just trying to. We're not trying to just put out the same material out there as before. Assuming material, the same thing. We're talking about material recording. We're not the same images. We're trying to actually not trying to. We are in developments of all new merch, so that's why it's been a little slow. So we apologize for that.
Yeah, no worries. And then so just bear with us while we redo everything, and where we're revamping the podcast. Like we said, we're integrating from Locker Room into War Stories and vice versa. War Stories into Locker Room. That way we can have multiple hosts come on. You'll probably still see Tom and I on every episode, unless there's something that happens and we just both can't be here, and then it'll be, you know, Matt and Marco coming in. But yeah, we're revamping everything. We want to make a better show for everybody, and that's what we're working on and striving towards. Improvising, you know, our quality through continuous improvement. There you go. Quality through continuous improvement. And that's what we're doing. And so if you have a story and you want to be featured on the show, you think you have a story, go to booking.warstories@gmail.com. Again, that is booking.warstories@gmail.com, and I can get you booked. We're always looking for law enforcement, veterans, corrections, dispatchers, fire, medics, and veterans, as well as ER nurses and doctors. I would love to get a freaking ER doctor in here, because let me tell you what, some of those issues I've seen with them and them fight and go to blows with the suspects, it's fucking wild, and they have a crazy life. So thank you for the support, everyone. Stay safe.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening.
And as always, come home with your shield or on it.
Or on it.